Hey everybody, and welcome back to Torment Tides of Numenera. So, when we left off, we just met our new friend Tiber here, a slightly unsavory character, and he had this wonderful plan to go save his friend. However, on some further reflection, I'm not as impressed with him. So, let's think about this a second. So, we met this guy, and he clearly knew that he was stealing state secrets and selling them to some hostile power or whatever. However, he did not bother to mention this to the guy that he had hired to work with it. His friend didn't bother to tell him that they were, committing treason. Lets his friend get caught, or possibly coincidentally, according to his story, hasn't particularly done anything to save him. And now that he's met us, this total stranger, we could be the brother of the head of the guards, tells us this big thing, has this whole plan to get this guy free that is entirely dependent on us putting our necks out. We're supposed to fraudulently get a hold of this certificate to let him go, and then, he's just gonna, be modified. We'll pass it around. But the point is we're the ones who are putting all the risk. If we get caught, he can just say, "Oh, I was just following these people around, and all of a sudden they decided to commit treason." So, anyway, not super excited about it. Shush, I'm talking. But we'll continue onward and we'll see how it goes, although I'm not committing to anything. So, you're just about to talk to Ian, the Overseer here, so let's go ahead and have a conversation and see what's up to him. What's up with him? A stout, middle-aged man stands atop the execution platform. He wears the badge of a city official, and a fringe of dreadlocks hang down to his shoulders from his otherwise bald pate. He gives you a disinterested look as you approach. "Please stay back with the others." "So, what's going on here?" He casts a brief glance over his shoulder towards Riss. "The prisoner, Riss of Flatwater, is being publicly executed as a warning to all who would flout the laws of Saga's Cliffs." "So what was his crime?" "Treason. He stole secrets to the enemies of Saga's Cliffs. On a side note, I'd like to know who those enemies were." "So, how does the execution work?" Another rustic. "It's very simple, sir. Our nanos induce in him a hallucinogenic state. In this state he experiences visions, nightmares really. He speaks of the things he sees, and his words become flesh as they leave his mouth. We shape the flesh into a human-like form, the death you see beside." He gestures towards the hideous figure, which looks to be made from rotting viscera. As more strands escape his mouth, his death wraps them around them, and they slowly crush the life out of him. Once the condemned is dead, the devourer of wrongs will eat his corpse. He raises his chin, proud. Thus is justice upheld in Saga's Cliffs. "So why does the devourer of wrongs eat executed criminals?" He smiles, grim. "He is one of the Den Ra'ur, who can suck the memories of the dead from their marrow. We've heard about them. In these memories is not only the proof of the condemned were guilty, but also the names of their compatriots and other associates. Many an accomplice has been found out in the belly of the devourer." Uh-huh. Okay, so here we see our new friend's motivation. He's going to be next up there unless we help him get free, and I'm sure he'll be cheerfully willing to trade us in order to make sure that he doesn't end up getting choked by his own words made flesh. Anyway, so we already know this, but what would it take to free him? He laughs and sobers quickly. The only thing that could free him would be a pardon from the council, and for a luckless nobody like this, that's about as likely as me growing wings. To be fair, I've seen a lot of weird stuff. Growing wings doesn't seem unusual anymore. New people. Alright, nothing interesting. Whoa, what are you? Okay, interesting. Felinda. Nearly every inch of this merchant's body is covered in tightly wound robes and furs. A hood obscures its head, and a mask conceals its face. This doesn't help you from noticing that it is apparently furious with you. Trembling, it bats at its similarly dressed companion. Both of them turn impassive masks back to you. Neither Felinda nor Steritzi could believe it, but the thief had come back. Had he come back in shame, ready to return what he had taken? No. His hands were empty, his expression baffled. Felinda crosses swaddled arms. Perhaps the thief had simply forgotten to return what he had borrowed, but this made him no less a thief. "I didn't borrow anything from you." The thief protested, but Felinda was unconvinced. The merchant's memory was as organized as the library shelf, and it remembered his face, twisted with desire for the very book in question. It remembered the same voice making promises it apparently had no intent of keeping. 10 years ago, this thief had borrowed a book. Felinda wondered if the scoundrel was possibly unfamiliar with the definition of the word. It did not mean taking a thing and keeping it, after all. Steritzi pointedly returns to work, ignoring you both. Felinda sighs, massaging its temples with gloved hands. But in the end, Felinda took a deep, deep breath and asked the thief to simply return the sealed and long overdue book with the 5-colored sigil on its cover. I wonder if this has something to do with that pentagonal tattoo that we have. How can you possibly remember who borrowed your book from 10 years ago? The cunning thief said, hoping to arouse doubt in Felinda's mind. But the hope was a foolish one. Felinda was memory, in the same way that the thief was fatty, tissue, fluid, and chunks of calcium. A meat bag. The merchant crosses its arms. Felinda was out of patience. Was the thief going to return the book or not? I don't feel responsible for my previous incarnations, but I don't know. I can't promise anything, but I'll keep my eyes open for it. The thief muttered ashamed, but Felinda was satisfied, temporarily, and with that the merchant returned to its work as well. Right. Why do you narrate everything I say? The thief said, but Felinda knew from long experience there was no explaining it. The merchant kneels before a bookshelf and jams book after book into the remaining space. This frustrated Felinda. After all, the two merchants were creatures of words, bound in metal and cloth, but whenever Felinda tried to bend those same words into explanations and answers, they crumbled and fell apart. They could not fold themselves around the truth. The merchant slams a final book into place, and so Felinda said nothing. All right, I can take a hint.
Sure enough.
Ooh, armors of different wildly different materials are arrayed neatly. Okay. Arms merchant, catch your name. The sign over this stall says, The Arming Room. Buy, sell, trade. Room, huh? Under the awning, a skinny man with stooped shoulders and a concave chest is cleaning a filth-caked weapon of some kind. He salutes you with a greasy hand. Done in a moment. Have a look around. If you need anything, let me know. So, what do you know about Saga's Cliffs? We're new here. Good place for the arms trade. Not much call for weapons in the city proper, it's true. The levies keep things quiet. He shrugs. I get most of my business from mercenary companies. The endless battle draws them by the dozens. Explorers, too. Plenty of carkers save up their shins and kit themselves out all fancy-like. And they wander down to the reef or into the bloom and never come back. The endless battle. That's new. We know about the reef, but I don't know if we've heard the bloom mentioned. Interesting. Okay, so please show me what you have for sale. Alright, what do we got going on here? Some daggers that are more or less downgrades. A Verid resembles a sword with 2 forked blades. It's shorter than an ordinary sword. Its unique shape makes it useful for both offense and defense. Oh, interesting. Your average mace, shields, crossbow, truncheon. Wait, artifact. On critical hits conferred the stunned, cannot move or take actions, active 1 round. This weapon releases a pulse of disorientated energy when striking the enemy's more vulnerable parts. Interesting. Okay, whoa, crap, I'm gonna buy so much stuff accidentally. And a broadsword. Oh yeah, so what are my other people carrying here? A buzzer. Ranged. This small device fits comfortably into a human hand. It fires thumbnail-sized, razor-sharp discs. While these devices are sometimes made from scavenged Numenera, skilled artisans can craft them from raw parts. They're fairly common weapons, although still valued and dangerous. Neat. And you're running around with a broadsword. Okay. Sounds good. Alright. So, what precisely is going on here? Huh. It's neat, whatever it is. So, let's take a look at this here. Ah! You inch closer to the lattice of energy that holds the creature, and as you lean in, the ugly glaive with the sledgehammer slung over his shoulder shouts at you. Oi! No gawking for free. Pay El Gento or get gone. He glowers at you, hand reaching for the heft of his hammer until you step away from the cage. Alright. Who are you, Kanadu? This large, bald, broad-shouldered man turns to face you. You freeze. It's not his dark cloak or his sledgehammer. It's that beneath the mustache and goatee, he's so ugly that he'd scare his own mother in a dark alley. Nice. He gives you an abrupt nod, and you get the distinct impression that here stands a man who enjoys the boredom of standing guard and the company of his own thoughts. Nothing to see here until you pay El Gento, he says, when it's clear you aren't moving on. With that, he returns his gaze to the empty sea, to the distant sea. So what's this thing here in this cage? Onyctherion, he says. And Gento will tell you more about that's what you want. So, okay, so how did you capture it? Long story, Kanadu drawls, then falls into silence. Apparently that wasn't an introduction, but an excuse. He sees you staring and asks, "Ask El Jinto, he's the talker, I watch the beast." Alright, let's just go talk to him. "So where is your friend?" He jerks his chin at the man with the pointy hat nearby. "Okay. This El Jinto. Gotcha." Don't care for that thing. In front of you is a weary traveler whose grim visage is mostly obscured by a pointy hat. Upon closer inspection, the lines on his face indicate that he has seen much and has many tales to tell. "Hello there, friend," he says. "Here to see the Nycthermeron? My friend in the cage over there? Or are you just looking to spend a word or two?" So, I have some question about your Nycthermeron here. Where is here? Nycthemeron? Let's go with Nycthemeron. Nycthemeron. "He's far from mine, friend," El Jinto says with a raspy chuckle, "as you'll likely see if I get too close to his cage." He tips his hat at you. "Go on, ask your questions." So, what is a Nycthemeron anyway? "A biomechanical union of stubborn curiosity and frothing malice," he says. "Who made them, no one can say, but they cannot be trusted or befriended. Cross their paths or thwart their incomprehensible whims, and they'll kill you if they can." Okay, so, if they're so dangerous, how did you capture him? "I suppose you could blame luck," he says. "Little early to call it good or bad, though." His eyes seek the sky as he begins his story. "I was working on, well, call it a trap, in a valley through some nameless ruin. Kanadu is off work hunting for dinner, and I work in a daze. I always do when I'm concentrating." A smile flits across his face. "Near sunset, the trap was still in pieces, and I heard Kanadu roaring my name. I turned just in time to see our guest bearing down on me. The creature's volley of molten energy cracked off the personal barrier I'd left active while building my trap, but I knew it couldn't hold. Then Kanadu leapt off the valley edge onto the Nycthemeron's back, bashing it with his hammer. It shrieked, and then night fell, and the creature went still." He shrugs. "I talked frantically, I imagine, or I admit, to finish the trap. It hadn't been designed for our guest, but as you can see," well, he gestures to the creature, "it worked." "So how did you get this thing into the city?" "A fair question," he says, casting a lazy glance back at the cage, "but a longer answer, and not as interesting as I'd like. Let's just say the trap is more, collapsible than it appears." Huh. Interesting. So what do you plan on doing with the Nycthemeron after you're done showing it off? "Oh, we're likely to release it and run as if every kind of demon in the world is after us. We're not trappers, see? We're explorers. And we're only in this to save up some coin for a journey across a long patch of ground." He rubs the back of his neck. "Not that our motives make much difference to our guest. He'll want to boil our skins once we let him go, and I say I can't blame him." "You call the creature a he, is it male? Oh god, please don't have genders." Could be female, or genderless, or many-gendered. Who can say? I have our friend in prison, and I feel better about the fact if I don't call him it." Oh, thank God. Okay. So, what else do we have to chat about? "So, I'm asking around. I'm looking for someone who can repair a complicated device." "It must be in desperate shape if you're patrolling the circus talking to strangers," he says. "Do you have a piece of the device? Might be that I can offer my opinion." Well, okay. I do have the shard of crystal you can take a look at. He accepts the crystal shard with great care, turning it over and over in his cracked hands. In the silence, you catch a hint of wood smoke, and notice that his eyes have turned slate gray. "Living crystal," he mutters at last. "Seeking a greater whole. Still warm. Maybe alive. Maybe thinking." He hands the shard back to you with a touch of regret. "Interesting piece of tech, but not one I know much about. Sorry, friend. Try asking around some more." Living crystal, maybe alive, maybe thinking. Uh-huh. Okay, well, I'd like to see this creature up close, I guess. "Your curiosity does you credit, friend. It'll only cost you 25 shins. Let's see if I can talk him out of it. Okay, I'm not very persuasive. Nor is she. Oh, as opposed to our friend here. Let's roll 80%. Let's try to save some points. And we succeed. El Jinto surveys you with an unreadable gambler's stare, stroking his chin with a cracked thumb. Finally he smiles. "Always nice to meet a fellow barter," he says, and takes your money. "Visit our guest whenever you're ready." "Will do." Well, I'm thrilled to death at poking at you, so...
I'm ready.
The cage in which the creature floats is a simple frame that contains a shimmering, nearly transparent cylinder of energy. It emits a low hum, barely audible, that sets your teeth on edge. The container is a delicate filigree of ornate materials with no apparent controls, but surely they must be hidden somewhere in the traceries and protrusions of the wirework. You approach the cage cautiously. Good. The monster within looks like a fungal blob mated with a muscular ichthyoid. Its multiple tentacles terminate in syringes, needles, and injectors. This mass sits atop and is integrated with a floating orb of some type. It seems to be both mechanical and biological, with one system flowing smoothly into the next, a creation from some mad nightmare. The energy field darkens protectively and automatically as the creature throws itself against its walls, thrashing and striking mindlessly with its needle-tipped tentacles. The darkening is almost a strobe-like effect. Even as you watch, one of the tentacles coil back and blast furious plasma at the walls of its cage. The cage holds, but the shields dim to prevent any radiation from the blast from escaping. Okay, let's take a look at this wacky cage. I'm most interested in tech. The cage appears to be made of a mixture of synth, spun strong glass, and a lightweight metal, intricately embroidered to create mind-warping patterns, evocative and strange. Energy shifts and flickers among the sort of crevices, somehow being shaped by the form of the materials. Your closer examination reveals a small panel worked cunningly into the frame of the cage. Some of the filigrees here are worn smooth, as if slowly eroded by friction. Perhaps these are the controls. Okay, I'm not touching the control panel. Come on. Touch the cage? What could possibly go wrong? Let's poke it. Ah! You reach out to the cage, your fingers hovering over some of the cunningly worked materials, and then lay your hand on the cage. You close a circuit into the energy somewhere, or you become a part of it, and strange energies jolt through your body. The shock hurls you away from the cage. Okay, that was stupid. That Karks, you've got no one to blame but yourself, you stupid Tulk. Okay, you make an excellent point.
Absolutely.
Sorrow walks our streets feeding on the marked. Beware her sour breath.
Without doubt.
Fortunately, I agree with you. The Genocide. Okay. This burly armor-clad figure stands almost motionless as you approach. He regards you silently through his singular eye. The studs on his arms and the blades on his shoulders are stained and pitted with age. When he speaks, his voice is muffled and artificial, a hollow grumble that emanates from the entirety of the helmet. I am the Genocide. If you ask, I must answer. Pass on, then, and exchange no words. Sorry, I gotta ask you questions. What are you? I am a blade that cannot cut, a weapon that cannot strike, a living monument to failure. He shifts his weight. You hear the frown in his voice. I was Ogesti Telekotu, the firm hand of tradition. They called me one of the Black Three. Enemies did not understand us. They took my name to mean death in a dozen extinct tongues, called me Orphan Maker, Hope Smasher, Death's Child. My armies blackened the earth and the skies. My Dragoliths scoured the land. Domination was my duty. If they had known, if they had welcomed us, they might have been our thralls. Instead, they became dust. He gestures. All this, it was to have been mine in stewardship for the future of my people. It was promised, but now... His arm falls back to his side. Now I am the Genocide, a relic, the last of my kind. The last of your kind, why is that? I know of no others. Kalagod Anvor, he who shares truth and understanding, is dead. Vostalu Lo, the blinding light of reason, was destroyed. The underspine has fallen. My people are destroyed utterly, and our servant God speaks to us no longer. The clean lines of order and the glory of battle have forsaken us. He pauses. The rest are dust. We rose against a superior foe, and were outmatched. Only I remain to tell the story of the Tabat. The underspine? Is that a place? You mentioned the Tabat. Who or what were they? My people. His voice is forlorn. Great warriors. We owned this land. We served the underspine, and it served us. We sought truth and victory. We ascended to epiphany. We were pure, incorruptible, indivisible even in disunity. We found strength in one another, and proved it with bloody blades. But we fell, and the underspine fell. And so, too late, we learned a new truth. But I carry the old ways as a seed within my heart. The underspine, what can you tell me about that? Our slave, our god, our prize. It kept us holy, kept us pure and unchanging, anchored to a fixed point. The world turned around us, but we remained constant. When the world brought inconsistency, we fed it blood. He pauses. The underspine was our soul, our confessor. We knew clean, hard rapture from it. We knew our path. It gave us the words of our ancient Tabat, and our path was rigid and unbending, absolute. So what was the underspine? He considers. You would not understand. It was a machine. It was a stone. It was a cavern. It was a city. It was the direct voice of our ancestors. It spoke in our heads, and in our ears, and in our hearts. We heard its voice in our crushes, in our daily instructions. Our God was true and strong and singular, not the fickle, inconsistent things of the modern day. I wonder if they're like a made species that this thing constructed? I don't understand. So what happened to it? You can hear the frown in his voice. Sabotage, or failure. One of those under my command told me that it had whispered defeat into his ears, as if it had sickened, lost sight of the true path. Given the question, the underspine denied this. My soldier was cast out, and I suffered the barb for his doubt. It was later, years later, that the underspine broke, after our failure, and I have never been sure if the seeds of our defeat were planted in those days. Does he mean broke as defeated, or broke as in broken? He shuffles his feet. The nano who captured me, who nailed me to time, he used the mind seer to ferret out the underspine's location. I do not know if he ever found it in the world. He raped a genocide from me, and mocked me with his sobriquet. I was not to blame. I will stand before the underspine and swear my innocence. Nailed me to time. So what's this benefit of an absolute path anyway? We had no questions about our duty, about our goals, only the particulars. We erased doubts in the purity of uncertainty. Questions raised are questions answered, or they are heresy. No need for self-agony. The necessity of introspection was transmuted into optimization of our paths, into fashioning ourselves into the pinnacles of our achievement. Clear definition in life creates truth, not this pitiful shadow. That's understandable. True certainty is a wonderful thing. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, I wasn't done talking to you. I have some more questions. He watches you, hardly moving, as if he hopes you will pass by quickly. You said you had to answer if I asked. Why is that? From within the helmet, you hear a grinding noise, the sound of teeth gnashing, amplified, and then the voice again, bleak. We sat at the river's edge, and we wept for the time that was. We saw nothing more to conquer, and yet our hearts still drove us. We had conquered the land, purged its impurities, made it ours, and still wanted more. When we heard that humans had come to carve a home, we rejoiced to have a new foe, a new test of our strength. We rode against them. We drove them to the forge of the night sky, to the valley of Mrajolios, to the dangers of the Black Riage. But those who built atop those ruins, they thwarted us, time and again. And so we brought our constructs and our deadliest warriors to the bay outside the city. We laid a mighty siege. We entered the human settlement. We fought past barricades and traps. Some of our constructs are still here, silent and dead. But when we thought we had achieved our greatest victory... He lowers his head. A powerful nano saved them. With his magics, he called upon the strength of the ancients and captured us. I thought my life was at an end. But he imprisoned me in slow time, trapped me in my body, used machines to paralyze my will. I still remember our glories, and I see the fated future in front of me, and I am powerless to act. The memories of our triumphs remain always at the forefront of my mind, and I must answer the mocking questions of these people, or suffer. Okay, wow, there's a lot going on here in this sentence. He imprisoned me in slow time, trapped me in my body. So you're implying that you were not anchored in time, nor trapped in one body? Whoa. Okay, so what can you tell me about the nano who trapped you here? How did he stop you? The Genocide raises his hands in defeat. He found old knowledge and made it his own. He created defenses that we could not penetrate. Most telling, most effective, the shield generators. He created 3 barriers around the heart of the city, and the last unmoored the city in time. When our constructs touched it, they flashed to stasis. We could not reach the city, but the city could reach us. There is a lot of temporal manipulation going on in this war here. You feel the ticklings of memory as the Genocide speaks of the shields. He continues to talk, oblivious. Let's let the memory come. It's a patchy memory, covering in still images and moments, the relentless beat of the war machines as they approach the city, the reavers in the sky on their dirigibles. You remember fighting them on the parapet. You remember fleeing into the safety of the city. You recall making your way to the shield generators, cutting off the Tabat's supply lines, and then the memory fades. The Genocide watches you silently. So that was us? We're really heavily involved in the history of this universe. You seem very calm for someone who's been in prison for centuries. I have been defeated. I have nothing to fight for. My captor castrated me with the tool they made to dampen my natural urges. I can remember the actions. I can recall the glory. But I feel shame, regret. I am weakened, but not by my volition. The Genocide squeezes his fists. Why does it matter? Those who stood against me are all dead. I am victorious. I no longer fight with the blade. My weapon is time. He leans in closer. I do not die. I cannot be wounded. I am held like a beetle in sap. Why would I not be serene? He settles back. The Underspine spoke of my destiny. I was to wage war until the edge of the universe, but the universe keeps going, and so, it seems, must I. Someday I will be free. Someday. Until then, I am incorruptible. That's an old joke. Conquering your enemies by outliving them. Okay. How did they stop you from trying to escape? The nano who raised the city's shields created a device. He called it the Mind Seer. With it he violated my mind, my memories, and everything that was at the core of my being. In a fit of vengeance, he tore truths from me. He made me betray my people. He rewrote my mind. He gave me perfect clarity into the past, and gelded my ability to shape the future. The Tabat never sought revenge against foes who were mightier than we. We devised stratagems to defeat them. We tested ourselves. We did not punish or hate. Punishment was purification. This, though, is torture. The worst of the city's refuse can mock me now. They can ridicule and jape, and I am powerless to strike them for their impudence. And then quieter. And now they do not even do that. I have become a fixture, an irrelevance, a non-entity. I am the slave to... You can hear his teeth grinding as he thinks of the perfect insult. To peacemakers. I must endure their presence and feel their corruption sink into me daily. Some foreign part of me desires it. He thumps his fist into his hand. But I remember that I will triumph over them. Eventually they will die, and I will not. Okay, so I'd like to go back here a second. Okay, so I remember this. Maybe I don't want to go for a two-part back here. So he rewrote his mind, something called the Mind Seer. If that was me, there's an awful lot of psychic manipulation going on here, too. So we've been creating bodies that we move our minds into sequentially for, I don't know, X number of years, where X is a high number. That implies a really intimate understanding of, I don't know, I guess of mind in general. Kind of seems to be a theme so far. Although, this guy was pretty smart, my previous self, given that he's, you know, either reactivating ancient Numenera or creating his own. Interesting. That defeated use the changing god. His children are still alive. I don't think I don't want to bring that up. So, you mentioned the shield generators. Can you tell me about them? I told you their effect. They unmoored the city in time. They severed our supply lines. They left us vulnerable and defeated us. The Underspine's strategy failed us. I began to doubt. He shifts slightly. The generators are unused, abandoned, their purpose forgotten. Though the people of the city still swear by our name, and our terrors are fresh in their nightmares despite the passage of centuries, they have forgotten the means of their salvation. This one, beside me, no longer functions. But one of the others is buried in the ground not far from here, and has not yet failed. It powers the clock around which these ridiculous fools prance. So, this is a shield generator? Okay. Well, I have no more questions. Very well. No, I wish you no good tidings. Is this our shield generator?
On it.
The machine towers above you like a dagger driven into the ground by a giant. It seems much older than the surrounding buildings. Your hands itch to touch the array of dark panels scattered around the machine, as though they have touched them before. Let's take a closer look at this. Your hands slip over the cobbled-together components and greasy cables, the buttons worn by frequent use. It is a strange accomplishment, this machine, clumsy but deft, amateurish but masterful. Only a brilliant mind could have melded so many disparate parts into a functional device. Unfamiliar memories whisper to you, this device was used, although you don't know how, to generate a field that unmoored everything within it from time itself. They keep saying that. That doesn't mean anything. I don't understand what that's supposed to mean. Your fingers scrape a rough patch. Lifting them, you see a circonate symbol etched into the side like a maker's mark. Okay, let's try to remember why this seems so familiar. Okay, I'm going to put some points into this when I level. This is all I have left. Flip a coin. Failure. Yeah, I'm down to 1. The memory teases you with images of the machine in pieces, but you can remember no more than that. Alright. Disappointing. I love this machine. This thing is so, or this creature right here. This is so cool. Okay, well, we've spoken to another handful of people. Performers, children. Ooh, someone else with a name.
All right.
So, we'll go speak to him in just a moment, but we're going to take a quick break, and I will be back shortly. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.